Hi guys, doing a bit of a different format today because it's raining outside and I don't particularly want to get soaked. I wanted to cover a few different things that was requested by a few different friends. I was asked to talk more about creative process. Today I'm sitting in my bedroom/studio. I primarily over the last year or so I've been working mainly on a Mac laptop, M1 Max laptop with Ableton 12, which I absolutely adore. It's amazing being able to create such big projects in something so mobile or remote. So for a long while my creative process has mainly been, I feel weird doing this. For a long while my creative process has mainly been always starting with a kick drum. Making the rhythm that I want by whatever vibe I'm in at that moment, following kind of genre-specific rules, I suppose you could say. It's always kick, then snare, then hats, then rides, then maybe toms or tams or shuffles, shakers, sorry. And usually when I have like an 8 or a 16 bar loop down, I would make a little fill at the end. Then I move into the sub, whether I'm going to do some 808s or I'll find like loads of different kind of bass loop samples, chop them all up and try and fit them together. Or even some like mid-range resamples and just basically cut all the highs out of it. And I really like a lot of the movement in a lot of different kind of resamples that you find. And I try to use, I think maybe some people will mainly just use like one sub patch for their whole track, but I like to mix it up a bit. I'm not sure if that's good practice, it's just something that I do. After the sub, I'll usually move into the mid-range, so I try to imagine it's kind of like a band, The guitar kind of sings along with the bass, and the bass is usually something a lot more simple. So if I have the bass line and it's groovy with the drums, I find it easier to kind of write the mid-range elements then, whether it's a mid-range bass or a vocal or a vocal chop or a guitar or just some instrument that I chop up. Chopping stuff up and slicing is definitely something that is a massive part of my creative process. Even if I start out synthesizing something, creating a pad, creating a melody, I'll usually tend to freeze and flatten it and put it into a slicer. I find that it just kind of creates more, I don't know, I kind of can get more creative with it then because a lot of the how I write a lot of music is essentially clicking in notes. I might play something on the Ableton Push 2 or the machine. I think it's the Mark III. But then usually what I'll do is I'll treat it like a sample and I'll slice it up. I tend to pitch things down by -5 a lot. Every instrument, every vocal. A thing that I do with a lot of vocals as well is I'll always, not always, but female vocals, I might pitch them down by -5 or I'll pitch them down by an octave, -12, and layer them underneath and maybe mess with the formant a little bit. I think Soundtoy's little altar boy gives this effect without needing to layer multiple audio samples, but I really like that kind of aesthetic, the pitched kind of under the water. I think that kind of trending thing of slowed and reverbed tracks give that kind of feeling. So in regard to overcoming mental blocks, I rely heavily on tutorials to get inspiration. If I feel like I can't make something or like I'm just not feeling creative, I'll usually open up a tutorial. One of the main tutorials that I always go back to is Philth's, Philth. His tutorial, I think he does 2 of them. One of them is on mental health and the other one is on workflow. And I was just really impressed with mainly the workflow one because it showed like kind of like separating the sound design from the arrangement process. So what I tend to do if I'm not feeling too creative is I'll make kicks and snares, or I'll just write just drums, and they might be shit, but I'll just try and get something down. And maybe one of the elements might actually be good. Maybe how I make the rides, or how I process the snare, or whatever. And that will I'll add that to like a little pack. I'll export it, and it might be used later, you know. But yeah, the whole idea of keeping the sound design and separate from the arrangement is something that my buddy Paul told me to do a lot. He always said, like, when you do the work first, when you do the sound design, you make the patches, then it's like the creative and the fun part can happen later. So when you sit down, you're not trying to find a kick that matches with a snare, or kind of getting stuck that way, you know. I also think that it's really important to start in places that you've never started before. So finding a tutorial, something that you don't understand, following it step by step, and then that being kind of the foundation of what you're going to write your track around. So it could be a Reese like this specific track. You find a tutorial, Reese like this artist makes, or whatever. And then you can never really get it spot on, you know, but you end up going in that general direction and then make your own tweaks, your own kind of processing. And then that usually gives me, or helps me rise above the creative block. So I really, really recommend that. Following tutorials. And what I really believe is that music is a series of, 1,000 good decisions. A good track is, loads of good decisions, one after another. Obviously some bad in there as well, but how I really believe you get better at making music is you learn something you don't understand, and then you apply it. And you learn it to the degree that you'd be able to repeat it without having to follow a tutorial or having to look something up. And by doing this, you're essentially adding lots of different, I used to call them like weapons, lots of abilities to your repertoire. So when you sit down to do something, or you're in the middle of a track, you're like, oh, this track would be better with this, or I could make this decision, or I could add this. And just with time, usually years and years and years, your ability to be like, oh, I want to do this with this track, you can do it. A lot of artists, they start out really inspired, thinking, I'd love to be able to make music. I have so many great ideas. And then you get a bit of a slap in the face. You realize that it is really, really difficult. And a lot of people give up. They open up the software, Fruity Loops or Ableton or Cubase, and they just don't know what the fuck they're looking at. They don't understand anything, any of the principles. And then it's like a massive block. So making music is definitely the most complicated thing I've ever encountered in my life. It mixes art, philosophy, and science all together. There's physics in it. There's loads of like emotional value, trying to understand chords, how melodies resolve themselves, how specific keys might evoke specific feelings in a person, and then on top of it you've got mix downs, so like you can have it all, but then if you can't make it sound good and translate on multiple systems in multiple environments, then it's going to always impact how people will receive your music. So getting into making music, or continuing making music if you have a creative block, I think the only way forward is true, and the best way forward is just by educating yourself. Usually some of the best information is gatekept. There's lots of I'd call it like misinformation or disinformation out there as to like, high passing everything, or how important mono is. There's lots of disagreements about that. A lot of modern clubs now do actually have stereo. Not everything is in mono, but you want it to be able to sound good in mono. But then if you go too far that way, the track can kind of lose its vibe and kind of sound like shit. So it's a balance between the two. For releasing music, I believe that finding a distributor that you like first is number one. I like DistroKid. I've been working with it a bit recently. They're just all the different services that they have built in for the price is very good. I think that when you have a track that's ready, or you think it's ready, you need to send it to a handful of good friends, people that are going to give you good advice back. Maybe you listen to them, maybe you should listen to them, maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should trust your own instincts. A lot of the time, I suppose people won't be able to distinguish between their own taste and what's actually like relevant for the track to be better in terms of arrangement or mix down. And I think you should always take people's advice with a grain of salt. But ultimately, if you find someone who's going to put the time in and give you good advice, even if you don't end up using it, trying it out, saving a new version of the track, trying it out, and trying it out. Just try it out. Abandoning tracks. Abandoning tracks is definitely something that happens. We forget about things. We save them for later. We name them some obscure title, and then we struggle to find them, even if we do remember them. And most of the time, they're just lost. A lot of people, they just get excited about making something new. It feels good. They go back to listening to something old. They don't have that creative energy in them. And it's very difficult to get an idea that you don't feel is good enough over some kind of finish line. But that can be a really good practice. Lots of people really swear by that when they start something, they're going to aim to finish it. I'm the type of person, nearly with any kind of thing in life, it's all about kind of the shotgun effect. You try as many things as possible, and whatever is good enough or whatever energy is kind of carried through you in that process will ultimately, the track should write itself. You'll be able to get a good track or the bones of a track finished in a day. And then you need to, Paul Mnemonic says like 20 minutes break is enough. But for me, I need to forget about it because my ear and my issues with rhythm, I latch onto certain elements. I hyper-focus on things and it kind of skews my vision as to the track as a whole. I might really like how the sub is moving and I won't be aware of like resonant frequencies in the hat or clashing in the mid-range or this kind of thing, or just issues with the arrangement. And I think, and I'll come back to this quite a lot, there's the Tape Notes podcast, which is full of really valuable information. My three favorite ones were from Fortet, Bonobo, and Rufus du Sol. And in the Fortet one, he talks about arrangement being the priority above everything else, because it's easy to change a kick, it's easy to swap out a snare, but the musical idea ultimately is the thing that will the musical idea is ultimately the thing that should decide whether the track is good enough to be spending however many hours it would take you to finish, Testing tracks out on a dance floor is something that I've struggled with. I've only played my own music live in front of people a few times, and it never felt like a right feeling. I never felt like the mix down was good enough. I was always comparing my tracks to the other ones I was playing. Maybe that's a good thing, they're references. But comparison is the thief of joy. Maybe the track actually sounded all right, but the inner critic pipes up and it's just like, no, not good enough, fuck this. And that kind of ruined shit for me for a while. I think because drum and bass can feel like quite a competitive industry to be a part of, it kind of stopped being fun for me. It stopped feeling like creative expression. It just always felt about like I needed to get better, always needed to be better. And it's really, really difficult to produce stuff that stands up against the professionals. It's really, really difficult. A lot of the time it's down to good sample selection, understanding specific arrangements, and being really good at mixing tracks down. And it's going to take years. It's going to take years and years and years. Collaborations are definitely the best way to learn the most quickly, I think. Some people collaborating in person can go really well. Some people can be really awkward and be really difficult. And some people don't know how to... Me and my buddy Daniel a long time ago, and it was really good. We used to set timers and we tried to stick to them, just like 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. And at the time I was only learning, so Daniel was doing the bulk of the work, of the heavy lifting, and maybe sometimes I'd come up with one or two good ideas, but it's really fun. It's really fun just to keep things quick fire, keep things going. Another way that me and my buddy Paul have been collaborating over the years, not as much as we should have been, but we have done, we talk about it a lot, is just sticking to a 16-bar loop. Just spending an hour on something, sending it over, spending an hour on something, sending it back, and trying to just flesh out an idea, try and get an idea down. And usually, like he would say, when you have a 16-bar loop down, 16-bar loop, switch up, another 16-bar loop, the track will just write itself then. With the business side of music, it's something that I'm still beginning to understand myself, or trying to understand. I think it's really important for people to distinguish between, there's lots of ways to make money with audio, and it's very difficult to be an established artist that gets paid to tour or can make enough money to live off of their streaming sales or their sales, essentially. I think most of the time, most artists in a lot of industries have a job. It's less than a fraction of a percent that people that are lucky enough to live off of their music. I'm quite lucky at the moment where I have a client that is enabling me to work and I can live from it, making music for him. I'm very, very lucky to be able to say that, and younger Tony would be, I know it's a dream. It's a dream for a long time to be able to make money making music. It's something that I don't think I ever expected. And I'll be eternally grateful to the person that has helped me to do this. And I hope that we can explore deeper levels of success together. So releasing on labels, I think that it's important to try to release at a humble level. Don't reach for the stars, because most of the time, even if your music is good enough, labels will want you to have your own audience, because you bring that audience to their label and generate sales for them. So I think there's plenty of artists out there that are submitting music to labels and the music is good enough, but if they don't have a big enough of a following, if they aren't behaving in ways that will actually push their music forward on social media, then it's not really a good business investment for the label. I think that something that I've discovered over the last week or so doing this content is people connect with people. They don't always just connect with music. So uploading a WAV to a website or to a distribution, just like putting up artwork and sending it to all your friends is only going to get so much attention. The same on a label, they might have reach, they might, get a certain amount of views in a certain amount of time, but I really believe that if you want people to really engage with you as an artist, you have to show your face. You have to get involved directly. You have to kind of shed that judgment, and that's what I'd refer to it as. That if you want to be recognized for your music, you have to understand that it's a personal brand, that you are the product as well as the music. And if people resonate with you as a person and they like your music, it's more likely that they will be like part of your community, that they will actively be involved and engage with your music, and possibly even if they run events, book you. But if you're this kind of mysterious, just like release a track every now and then and kind of hide who you are, people won't recognize you. You won't be putting yourself out there. And yeah, something that I won't personally do is do like reaction things to my music. It just doesn't feel, I don't like it. If it's really creative, like really mad editing or whatever, I like that because there's a creative element to it. But gun fingers and tunes, it's just not for me. Not for me. Everyone to their own. Doesn't make me feel good when I see it. Just find it kind of painful. But people can do what they want. Pitching to labels, I've tried different things. I've fucked myself over in the process. It seems that the way to do it is that you should send 1 to 3 tracks at most. They need to be finished, they need to be mastered. You need to be polite, and you need to only send it to one label at a time and wait. If you spam it out to labels and you get a response and you're like me, you get overexcited, you might say yes, and then 2 months later you might get a response from a label that you have mad respect for, and it's really bad to go back on your word. So that's something that I don't ever think you should do in labels, because you could burn a bridge with someone, and this label over here might look good, this many followers, whatever, and this label might be up and coming, and you burn a bridge with someone who you don't know who they're going to be in a couple of years or the positions that they're going to be in. And another thing is, I'm going to quote Paul here again, is that it's better to be like a medium level artist on a small label, so they'll actually put time and effort in and possibly book you, to like kind of like no one on a small label, because, or on a big label, because they're not going to be putting much effort into your release. They're most likely not going to bring you to an event, you know. So I really believe that making the decision to go with the people that are going to actually respond to you, that are going to communicate well, that are going to be grateful, you know, that you're not just kind of like, you know, release 67 and, you know, oh, thank you for, you know, creating artwork and paying for mastering and, you know, possibly never paying me kind of thing, you know. But I think relationship is everything. Nearly all the gigs I've ever gotten has been because I've been nice, I've communicated, and I've reached out. And, you know, like, obviously releasing music, I think being a DJ will only get you so far. Maybe you'll play in the local pub that will allow you to play for the rest of your life, but unless you're releasing music and putting yourself out there, maybe there are plenty of DJs that do get that opportunity, but the likelihood is increased massively by you actually actively releasing music. And most of the time, like I said, I'm going to repeat myself, if you go with the small label or the smaller crew, they're going to actually look after you. They're going to put effort into the release. They're going to be grateful. And most likely they'll book you. They'll bring you to a gig. Something that I wanted to talk about is something that Andrew Huberman speaks about, and it's called limbic friction. For example, if you leave your gym bag by the door with your headphones, with your water, with your running shoes, everything ready to go to the gym, the night before you intend on going to the gym in the morning, it'll be much easier for you to get up and just go. But if you don't do any of that and you're like, get up and you have to, I have to get all my stuff together and all this kind of stuff, it's actually going to most likely stop you from doing the thing that you want to do. So with music, I'm a big believer in reducing friction as much as possible. And I try to implement this in many areas of my life. But I try to have things plugged in, on and ready all the time. If I'm going to bed and I know I need to work on a track in the morning, I'll open the track and I'll have it ready to go, and might even make some notes. Something I miss about when I first started producing music was that I didn't know what I was doing, and there wasn't all these rules and like things like, oh, you have to do this because of this reason, you have to do this because of this reason. And it kind of like pigeonholes creativity. I think that's the right word, pigeonhole. So yeah, it kind of restricts you from exploring sound in a way that maybe you wouldn't have thought of. And that can ultimately lead to like, I think like a real kind of form of creative like exfoliation, that you kind of like shed your skin or kind of let something out of you that you didn't realize you were holding on to. And I always think of Aphex Twin, or I think it's like Venetian snares, or Ruby My Dear, where maybe it's just like breakcore or just fucking mad sound shit. And they were just had different levels of creative restriction, I'd imagine, different weird ass fucking softwares from a long time ago. And it's same with Burial, you know, making his Untrue album inside of Sound City, I think. Maybe I'm incorrect in saying that, but he made it inside of, it wasn't actually even a DAW, it was like something like Audacity. So there was no grid. So all this kind of stuff I wish that I was able to, I think Nominee talked about it a lot in his Education and Bass. He used to talk a lot about mental health. He might still do it. I haven't seen his stuff in a while, but he had one video about the beginner's mind, about always approaching things as though they're fresh and like you've, never done them before, with that level of energy or enthusiasm or interest or excitement. Obviously, these principles can be applied to anything in your life, but with music specifically, it's something that I wish I could do more. Because music is my job, I feel like it's very clinical. I'm like, okay, got to do this, got to do this, got to do this, And there's a lot to be said for reverse engineering, understanding how specific genres are made rather than guessing, following tutorials specifically, finding reference tracks, and replicating structure, not replicating vibe. Well, you could say vibe to a certain extent, but I wouldn't say the full musicality. You're more trying to get like the drums and maybe the swing down, and then understanding like, okay, this is the specific instrumentation that's used. Maybe a lot of a certain type of genre is actually written in major, or it's like more uplifting and happy. A long time ago, well, 4 or 5 years ago now, I did a thing called Under the Stairs session in my house. It started with a microphone under my stairs, and it grew into kind of, I suppose it was more of like a session than anything, partying over months and months with big groups of people. But the sitting room was just basically full of instruments, cables everywhere, absolute chaos. But used to get together, and it was like a form of musical therapy where I'd make some drums, someone would pick up a guitar, I'd just record guitar until they'd do something that I'd like. I'd tell them to just keep playing that on a loop while recording. I'd cut it, mix it on the fly, then maybe singers would come on, try and do some singing, some pianists, some violin, some cello. There was a lot of people came through the house at that period. It was a really, really good time. I'm sure 1 or 2 people who are listening to this will remember it fondly, and some great music came out of it. Some really, really fun stuff, and it was definitely a form of therapy for a lot of people, because you could, like, because there was kind of no holds barred, there was a lot of substances used during that period, and people really, they could tell like how when they started off in the moment that it was like the nerves would hinder the process, but then as the night kind of went on, people really came out of their shells, and I'd love to do it more. There's something really special about that, about getting loads of musicians together and just having a laugh. And it was always the best ideas would just kind of start as someone just like, they'd be listening to maybe some drums and a guitar, and they'd like, just jam, they'd say a phrase, and then that phrase would grow and change and turn into something more, and really, really interesting, really interesting.
Oh shit, why can't I get over it? Ain't picking up the phone if I can call you my bitch. Deep in the depths of insecurity, and for what? You think you're fucking better than me? Life gets easy when I'm feeling lucky, so tell your girlfriend to stop trying to fuck me. I've got something to say to you. 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 Oh shit, why can't I get over it? Ain't picking up the phone if I can call you my bitch. Deep in the depths of insecurity, and for what? You think you're fucking better than me? Life gets easy when I'm feeling lucky, so tell your girlfriend to stop trying to fuck me. I've got something to say to you. I've got something to say to you. I've got something to say to you.
one thing that I'd like to say about music marketing is when you are done with a track, when it's mastered, spend a good bit of time and invest possibly some money into good artwork, possibly multiple versions. Make reels of yourself discussing about it, up to 3. Try and be enthusiastic. Me, like this, trying to be enthusiastic. And make a plan. Like, I'm going to post 3 times a week about the specific track over, I would say, a week beforehand. A lot of people talk about like pre-saves, this kind of thing. Most of the time, you know, to convert people or conversions, it's like you have their attention, you want them to do it now. A lot of the time, you might send out pre-saves to a load of people, and they're going to they mightn't even open the link. They're going to make a decision in a fraction of a second to, you know, they're just going to forget about it. If they don't click on it, they're going to forget about it. Even if they pre-save it, they're probably going to forget about it. So I honestly think that it's probably even better to just do a lot of the marketing, or most of it, after the track is released. Now, it's definitely different for artists with followings, because you can tease stuff, live events, this kind of thing. But for people who are beginning, starting out, trying to figure it out, yeah, definitely put in the effort afterwards. Don't bother just doing like one piece of artwork. Try and reach out to blogs, try and reach out to radio stations, try and reach out to other DJs to put the tracks in like active DJs that are releasing stuff on Mixcloud or YouTube channels or whatever. Put the effort in. It'll make all the difference. And forget about taking over the world. It's really important to recognize that there's so many people making music all the time, and it's so much of it is of an unbelievable standard. And to think that one track you're going to make is somehow going to change your life, or that the world is going to recognize you, or you're going to get loads of bookings. Most likely how that's going to happen is by you being consistent over time, long periods of time of sustained effort and deliberate practice of getting better and putting yourself out there. I honestly think that it's more important than gigging. DJing is like, almost like, for me, for a long time, it was like the painful part of it all. It was like, okay, I've done a release now. I've released an EP. I should go and play at a gig. And, you know, it's the work part. It's the work part. So I already mentioned comparison is the thief of joy. The more you compare your music and your musical journey to others, the more difficult it's going to be for you to release, the more difficult it's going to be for you to actually enjoy the process. And it'd probably just make you unhappy. Go on Instagram every day and see all your favorite artists in, you know, the highlight of their career, playing at some of the biggest festivals in the world, and you are just dreaming of that. But I honestly think the reality of these things are often much different than what we see on social media. And I think it's really important to be aware of that be careful what you wish for. Maybe it isn't actually the life you want. Maybe your ego just maybe wants to be famous sometimes, and I think just be careful with it. So a bit of a mental health section. The thing I want to discuss is trying to help others and letting them live in your head rent-free. More often than not, or at least for me for a long period of time, I would spend a lot of time talking to people about what they're going through and trying to not be too solution focused, but it's just kind of the way I am. Trying to hear them out and give them some perspective to help them alleviate the suffering that they're going through, or to just give them some guidance on how they might be able to change their lives. And I would be sacrificing my own well-being over long periods of time, not sleeping well, really feeling their pain, and hoping that somehow I could say the right thing, send them the right information, hopefully I could teach them the right thing, or just that somehow I could spark that in them, spark the change in them. And my brother said something to me a while back, and I'm not sure if I fully agree with it, but he said, you can't help anyone. They have to just help themselves, you know? And I think it is true to a certain extent, but I really feel like we have to help each other. We have to spend time really trying to help each other. We have to reach out to friends. We have to take people's problems on board. But I suppose what I'm trying to say is that to what extent? To what extent is it good for us or them? Is our attempt at having an impact on someone else's life actually making it worse? Something I've said a lot over the years is most problems are best dealt with without force. So I was listening to Tony Robbins yesterday on a Chris Williamson podcast, and he was talking about like the life that we have is actually the life that we focus on. So we wake up in the morning, we decide to focus on what we don't have, then that's what the life that we're having. But if we focus on what we do have, that's the life we're having. So our life is actually more about our attention than actually our circumstances. And that fucking blew my mind. Now, I might be butchering it, quoting it, but that was the general gist of it that I got. And yeah, fucking blew my mind, man. I think ultimately if people want to change, the first thing that they have to do is be honest with themselves. And I think that is probably the most difficult thing to do in life, is to like recognize your own delusions, your mistakes, who you are, your regrets. It's unbelievably difficult, especially if you spent a significant amount of time being an asshole, being delusional, being mean, being angry, being depressed, or just like, I think the main issue most of the time with people is that when they think they know something, when they're so, when they really believe that their thoughts are facts, I think that is a very, very dangerous place to be, because how the fuck are we supposed to know anything? We barely know ourselves. How are we supposed to know another person? Well, we can't read minds. And I spent years thinking that I understood the world, that I had somehow achieved some level of knowledge, or that I was, I don't know, that I had some deep level of understanding. And it was actually creating, like, I was separating myself from reality by doing that. And it's a very, very dangerous place to be. So I really would hope that if you're listening to this and you think you know something, you have to exercise some level of doubt. Because if you don't, you might be fucking insane. And I was for a long period of time. And to come to terms with your own sanity, to recognize like, oh fuck, my thinking has been really off for a long time, and it's affected how I've navigated the world. Like, I intellectually escaped from my problems into a world of imagination, and I think a lot of people are guilty of it. They mightn't go very deep, but they could be their opinions about their loved ones, could be their opinions about their partner, could be their opinions about their kids, could be their opinions about politics. Yeah, I think like when you think you understand the world, I think you're in a bad place. My dad used to say to me when I was a young fella, and maybe he wasn't the best person to be giving me advice at the time, but he said, if you want to change the world, you start with yourself. Obviously, he wasn't the first person to fucking say that, but he used to always remind me, because I was obsessed with changing the world, because I felt like there was something wrong with it. But most likely there was actually just something wrong with my home life at the time. And as I've grown up and as I've ended up in better situations with better people and better environments, I've noticed that the world is actually a good place, you know. And it's important to let go of the things that we are taught by others when we're young, because most of the time they're operating from places of pain or lack of understanding or lack of education. And it's our job as adults, as we grow up out of this stuff and develop our own level of independence, to recognize that we need to kind of audit our thoughts. There needs to be a level of is what I believe mine? Is it someone else's? If it is someone else's, and you can recognize that, to be able to understand why they felt that way, or what happened to them in life that caused that opinion to occur. So today I went on a bit longer than I thought I would, being inside the house. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode, or this day. It's day 9, I believe. Happy with the response so far. 53 subscribers. I think nearly a total of 700-800 views, which is something that I'm really happy about, although I know I'm just spamming loads of strangers and loads of people I know. And I'm going to keep doing so. I'm still aiming to get to the 100 days. I'm hoping that I'll be able to film a lot more when I'm out, rather than just recording myself and talking and trying to edit the episode. I'll also, when I'm out, I'll film more B-roll, more drone footage, and then for the days that I'm inside, I'll be able to reuse some of that drone footage and some of the B-roll. So yeah, thanks guys. Take care.